All right, hello everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this electrifying episode of the Geek Garage podcast, the most inclusive and accessible nerd culture audio program on the interwebs. I'm your host, David Dassaw, and joined with me is the prodigal son return.
So close, David. So just and
I
yet
I was trying to pull a purposeful Michael Scott and introduce you in the shittiest way possible, which I feel like is fitting, right?
Yeah, it's pretty. Well, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
The definition of wedding is the fusing of two hot metals.
The Webster's Dictionary defines wedding as the fusing of two metals with a hot torch. Anyways, so I think that's the record for the quickest we've ever brought up an Office reference.
Probably, yeah.
Like within the first 90 seconds of the podcast. But no, Ted, welcome back to the show.
Hey, buddy.
I have missed you dearly. And
we still talk. It's not this. I'm sorry. We don't want to give them too behind the scenes look at the podcast here. This is the first time we've spoken since the last time I was on the show.
Yes, yeah. When you announced that you had better things to do than this shitty ass podcast that makes no money,
more expensive at least.
No, you had some stuff to do and to take care of, and then we decided to never talk again.
Yes. I believe the last thing you said to me was, and I'm quoting directly here. This is a very hurtful thing you said to me. Fuck your stupid face. You're dead to me, you fat ass. Fuck. Which hurtful, first of all.
Right.
But not inaccurate also. So
yeah, I just sent you the gif of Chris Griffin about to cut the rope on the stairs, and he's like, "Come on, you fat fuck, dude."
Do it.
Do it. Yeah.
This got out of hand really quickly also.
I mean, it's bold of you to assume that it was ever
at any point in hand.
In hand, yes. But yeah, we're here to talk about the Batman, not just Batman, but the Batman.
Yeah, the article is important.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's not like Facebook where like you can drop you need the Batman in this particular instance.
I'm actually a fan of the in front of the Facebook, the Twitter, those things.
I mean, it does have a certain panache, I guess.
Yeah. It makes me feel like a boomer, which is about the only time I'm ever going to feel like a winner. So
exactly. I mean, anytime you can refer to yourself as a boomer is a plus, right?
Context matters, I think, and then
yeah, complain about the high gas prices while driving a 70-gallon pickup truck.
Yeah, that gets like 14 feet per tank. Yes, I understand.
Yes, exactly. I'm gonna blow a quarter of it in the Sonic parking lot when I rev my fucking.
Yeah, I'm a bitch about this damn gas prices and blame Joe Biden, but I'm gonna do a sick burnout too, though.
Watch me peel out of this fucking Mapco parking lot.
Yeah, not there's anything wrong with buying your gas at the Mapco, which I have done on occasion when I didn't have money to buy it at a real establishment. But I'm kidding. Jesus Christ.
What, does Mapco have fake gas?
I don't know. Now I want to
know. At one point in time, someone told me that Mapco gas is not great. Like they were like, "Oh, they water it down," and I was like, "What? What does Dasani own?" Like, I don't understand what's happening here. But anyways,
I don't know if you guys know this, but gas in an engine combusts. That's why they're called internal combustion engines. And I feel like putting water in them would stop that from doing that.
It's somewhat counterproductive.
Yeah. Yes, just the teeniest bit, though.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So yeah, the Batman. That was a movie.
Yeah, exactly. So before we dive into our thoughts on the Batman, you can insert snappy title here like 5 awesome things about the Batman, or like Robert Pattinson fucking brought it, or
gone sexual.
Yeah, like something like really snappy where like we hired actual PR people to write the titles for our episode. You can insert that here, whereas we just have like a a title called The Batman.
Yeah.
So we actually did a Facebook poll this week. Yeah, we're back at it with this poll. We're back on the poll, as it were. And we wanted to know who your favorite Batman was. I thought that I adjusted the poll so people could choose more than one if you had like a couple favorite Batmen, but apparently not, because I went to go like select more than one, but it only let me choose one. I was like, all right, well, I'll just go fuck myself. So, yeah, people only got to pick one. I apologize, but whatever. It's not that big of a deal.
None of this matters.
Yeah, that is correct. I have carried on saying that a lot of Ted-isms that were coined or brought to the podcast have continued on after.
I'm glad you're keeping my memory alive, even though I'm not dead.
The memory of you as a co-host is still alive and well on the show. Well. So. Yeah. So tied for first place as of, I think this afternoon was the last time I checked. Kevin Conroy and Christian Bale. They were tied for first. For you idiots who don't know who Kevin Conroy is.
We're super inclusive unless you're a fucking dumbass.
Exactly. No, I'm just kidding. So Kevin Conroy, he voiced the animated Batman series. Yep. In the it ran basically just in the 90s, right? That was kind of the main run, right?
Yeah. For the animated series, yeah. But he also has done a lot of stuff since then. I know he did a couple of the animated films. He did the Arkham games.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, which are I really highly recommend them if you're into that type of game. They're very, very cool.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but great things about the Arkham Asylum games. They're on my list. I'll eventually get to them. I guess now would be a decent time because I haven't played any games in a while, and it's obvious that I'm not getting a PS5 anytime soon.
No one else is. I refuse to believe that they're a real thing.
PS6s will be out first.
Yeah. But I feel you on the games thing, man. I got like 2 games that I was super excited about on like a Black Friday sale.
Oh yeah.
And they sit on my DVD rack unopened. So
excellent.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Doing great.
Yeah.
Well spent.
Right, exactly. Second place went to Michael Keaton, which I thought that's pretty accurate and representative. Third place, Robert Pattinson got a couple votes, and then fourth place was Will Arnett, who of course voiced the Lego Batman from both obviously the Lego Batman movie and then the Lego movie. I haven't seen the second Lego movie, so I don't know if he's in that as well, but I know he was at least in the first Lego movie. And then all the other Batmen that I listed, like I keep on wanting to say James Woods, but
nope, definitely not correct.
Maybe because they're both like kind of quote unquote characters from Family Guy. James Woods and what's the Mayor Adam West. Mayor Adam West. Yeah. Adam West, he was on there. So, I listed a bunch, and then of course I gave people the option to add ones that I maybe didn't think of. But that's what got the votes. It's kind of what I expected to see. I was kind of surprised that Will Arnett got any votes.
Yeah, I was going over the notes and I was like, huh, okay.
All right.
Teach their own though. Not everybody likes the super gritty, dark. Also, he has a very nice voice.
Yeah, Will Arnett, nice he's right up there, like top 10, like most distinguished or distinguishable.
Distinct.
Yeah, I think that's best. This is exactly why I invited you back on the podcast. It's because I just say like 10
words good.
Like I am like, I turn to that page in the thesaurus and say all the words around it, but not the right one.
It means corpulent. Do you mean fat? Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, a fat joke. How gauche.
Oh, gauche, indeed.
Yes, quite. All right, so we're done with the fucking Facebook poll. So let's jump into the actual film. So first, I guess we're gonna give our general overall thoughts and feelings and opinions. Um, do we want to wait until the end to give like our star rating or whatever out of 10
I mean,
score
yeah.
or
Let's just freeball it, man. We can do that. That's fine.
okay. Well, I mean, I'll be honest. I ranked this pretty high in my letterboxd, which is something that I started doing thanks to you, Ted. You it came highly recommended by you, and I didn't realize how great it was at keeping track of movies when it
Mm.
comes to like the shit that doesn't suck segment. So now, like, I just break open my letterbox and see what I have been logging recently. So, yeah, it definitely comes in handy for that. But yeah, I gave this. I'm pretty torn between like an 8 or 9. It's somewhere around there. But yeah, I'll go ahead and say I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. Um, I thought the cinematography was amazing. The sound mixing was a breath of fresh air after watching all three Nolan movies in a row and having my ears blasted off.
No shit.
Still, nothing will ever be as bad as Interstellar, because once you go Interstellar, you go deaf, or just once you go Nolan, you go deaf. So yeah, there's that. And there's just a plethora of other things that I really enjoyed about it. There were things that I could have done without or didn't care for, which we can get into. But yeah, just for the sake of brevity, as of right now, I'll pass it to you, Ted, and hear your thoughts.
Yeah. I would say personally, I would give this a solid 7 out of 10.
Okay.
The things that I like or that I think it did well, I really, really liked, or I think it did incredibly well. And the things that I didn't like, I really fucking hated. So, well, and like you said, we'll get into that. I agree. I think the movie is very, very interestingly shot and composed, in terms of both shot composition as well as the soundtrack
Hmm.
and what I can't ever pronounce the guy's name. Michael Giacchino. I don't know. He's done a bunch of soundtracks. The guy's been working forever, but he's very talented. I really dug that vibe of it as
Hmm.
well. Excuse me. So, I would say it was a solid 7 out of 10. I don't know how deep you want to get into it right now, but I do have a lot of thoughts on it, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I have just a bunch of like various bullet points, but um, I mean, we can let's see. I guess let's start with Robert Pattinson's performance
Okay.
as Bruce Wayne / Batman.
I think before we go any further, we should probably say from here on out, there's going to be spoilers.
Oh, sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think we've done a pretty good job so far of not hitting any, but I think at this point, from now on, there probably will be.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you have not seen it and you care about spoilers, go ahead and turn it off. Get your ass to the movie theater, watch the movie. Strap your balls in. Go to the bathroom first because it is like 3 hours long.
It's
Um,
very long.
and it does feel like that. It's not like Avengers Endgame where it like flies by.
No, you
This
felt the 3 fucking hours.
you in fact did. So yeah, make sure you go pee pee first, and then watch the film. But yeah, so let's talk about Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne and Batman. Um, Me personally, I thought he did a pretty good job. I think my biggest, like, I guess, quote unquote gripe is that we didn't get a ton of Bruce Wayne. I mean, if they're kind of saving this for the sequels, which I've heard that there will be, um, that's fine and makes makes my gripe, I guess, a little less valid. But still, like, I felt like getting a little bit more Bruce Wayne would have been cool because we would have seen uh, that side of Robert Pattinson's performance as the character. So, but overall, I thought he was a pretty cool Batman. Very interesting take. Um, and yeah, I don't know, Ted. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I dug the characterization of Batman in this film, and I think he really nailed kind of what they were going for. Of that, this is supposed to be like year 2 of Batman's existence, so he's a younger guy, he's still kind of figuring things out. I
Mm-hmm.
also liked that they didn't really show like the suave playboy aspect of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
He was just like a fucking damaged guy, which I thought was an interesting take, and one that other iterations have kind of flirted with, but
Mm-hmm.
not really hit like this one. Like this one really leaned into it, which I thought was cool. I was talking with another friend of mine before seeing it, and I was like, I just want the super gritty, try hard. I listen to death metal on my off days, Batman that I've never gotten. And he was like, "Well, we got good news for you." um, so I dug that. So uh, I kind of agree with you though. Like I would have liked to have seen more as him trying to be Bruce Wayne, like
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Wayne as quote unquote a normal person.
Yeah.
Um, I thought that was one thing that I felt was kind of lacking from the film. I'll agree with that. But generally speaking, I like all things we did. I thought his hair was too long. That was kind of my one complaint. I thought that his hair was too long. I had trouble imagining how he fit his fucking cowl over it. But otherwise, I thought him as Batman was great.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole dark and brooding thing. I loved, like, I mean, of course, this was part of the writing, but I loved, like, getting to see the detective side of the character. Like,
100%.
we've always gotten like a little bit of detective, or a medium amount. I think with most of the Batman iterations, but like this went really hard in the paint with the detective side, like how he was able to solve a lot of the Riddler's clues. And I loved him working alongside Jim Gordon a lot,
Yeah.
like throughout the movie.
Yeah,
Like,
I really dug that iteration, or that aspect of the iteration as well, where they're like, he's the world's greatest detective, or the Dark Knight detective, or what have you. As
mhm.
he's called a few different things in the comics, and I mean, you look at like the Nolan trilogy, for example, and it's got him like in the Dark Knight, he's putting the bullet back together to get a fingerprint, which is kind of fucking stupid if you stop to think about it. But it kind of tried to show that like he's got the detective skills, but this one he actually like has like case files and is like going over things like a detective would. And
Right.
I really dug that because we haven't seen it kind of, at least that I'm aware of, in a film get as deep as that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's that. I just thought of something else. One thing that I really liked was, I mean, this kind of has to do with him playing Bruce Wayne and Batman, but also like tangentially related to other things. Um, they didn't beat you over the head with any, like, it wasn't very exposition heavy, or like they felt like they had to fill you in on events that have happened like in the
Yeah,
past. Like,
yeah,
I felt like this movie assumes a lot. Like, it assumes that you're already familiar with Batman. Like, thank God we didn't get any scenes or flashbacks or anything of Bruce's parents getting shot.
yeah. I will say that if I have to see Thomas and Martha Wayne get shot one more fucking time in a movie, I'm gonna fucking cry. It's bad.
Martha.
It's just, it's one of those things, right? It's like superhero movies are here to stay, and they're going to be rebooted as actors get older, or they decide they don't want to do it anymore, or like if they
Mhm.
underperform and they try to go a different direction with that character, what have you. Like that's just a fact of life. We don't need to see the same fucking 10-minute origin story in every movie that comes out, right? Like I think
Right.
at this point the zeitgeist is at such a point where everybody knows the story of Batman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like my grandmother knows the fucking backstory of Batman, and she's 88 years old. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like it's basically a cornerstone of pop culture, right? Like we don't
Right.
need to keep seeing it. So I'm glad. I agree with you 100,000%. That was one of my favorite aspects of the film. Is they were just like, you know who fucking Batman is, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to see all the shit. We can talk about it and kind of mention it a little bit and have it drive some of his pathos, but like we don't need to see it for the 1,000th time, which I was like, thank you for not insulting our collective intelligence.
Right, exactly. And while we're on character analysis, let's segue a little way from Batman and onto some of the other characters, such as Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. What'd you think of her performance?
I thought it was great. I thought it was one of the better characterizations of Catwoman that we've seen in a film.
Yeah.
Um, it's pretty obvious that this story and this world that they created with the film was very heavily influenced by like Year One.
Yeah.
And her character was pretty. It wasn't a copy paste. Like obviously they changed some things that make to make her character make more sense in this world, but a lot of her drive, if you will, was kind of from that story. And I really dug that. I dug that she wasn't just like a cat burglar, really. Like she had some
Right.
other complicated motivations. I liked it also she didn't just like let Batman run over her in a way, like where the scene I'm thinking of, or the sequence I'm thinking of in particular, is where she's wearing the contact.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, we got to do this. And she's just like, no, fuck you. I'm going to go find out what this guy knows. I thought that was cool. It's like, she was a more fully fleshed out character, I think, than she might have been in a different script, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I do like the fact that she got a backstory. Like I actually really liked Anne Hathaway as Catwoman, but like I liked just like what you said about how they aped a lot of like the backstory and the the reasons for why she is who she is from Year One. I liked how they kind of tied that in, how she was kind of brought up and raised in the what is it, the name of the bar?
The
Or
44
club.
below.
Yeah. I almost wanted to call it the ice box. That's not right.
I think it's the Iceberg Lounge.
You're right.
And then the club within the club is the 44 below, I think.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, so her like being raised in there, like her mom working there, and then she ends up working there, like I feel like that all tracks, and that gives her like proper motivation to have this close relationship with her roommate who also works there, and then wants to seek revenge on Falcone, who ends up being her dad. So yeah, I thought that was all pretty interesting.
Yeah, I didn't like the twist, which twist is the wrong word because that was one of the most telegraphed fucking things I've ever seen. But where it was like, oh, by the way, Carmine Falcone's your dad. I was just like, oh, okay,
Yeah, I'm a bit indifferent with that. I didn't mind it, but I could tell. I was like, oh yeah, I can tell some people are gonna have issues with this for one reason or another. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it as to exactly why, unless it just boils down to like,
I mean, I like it's not the worst twist that's ever been put in a movie, right? And like I understand it, I can track the logic of it, so to speak, but it's just one of those things where it's like, and I'm gonna say this about this movie a lot. It's just one thing that I was like, or one more thing that I'm like, okay, you could have cut that out and nothing would have been different, right? Like the movie would have been, because look, the movie's 3 hours long, and I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm too good to watch a 3 hour movie. Like some of my favorite movies are fucking long. It's like Ben-Hur. It's like you got to plan your day around watching that movie, right? Like and I love it. It's a fantastic film. I think everybody should watch it. Or like War and Peace, with the Russian version of War and Peace. It's like that's your whole day. Like you wake up, you hit play, and then when the movie's over, you go to sleep. Like, so it's like, I like long movies if they're done well. And I think this one overall is done well, but it's like, man, 3 hours is a big fucking ask for a superhero movie. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I totally get that. Let's see. What about let's see. Let's save Paul Dano for last, since he was the big bad. Let's see. So obviously we got Sean Turturro as Falcone or Falcone. I think they pronounce him Falcone in this movie, but I think Falcone was the pronunciation in The Dark Knight.
It might be. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's probably one of those tomato kind of things.
I love John Turturro as an actor, and I thought he was an interesting. I think he brought some interesting things to the character, because it would have been so easy for them to just be like, "You're a mob guy, be a mob guy." You know what I mean? And then it's just like he's just doing like a bad impersonation of like Ray Liotta doing a bad impersonation of like Robert De Niro. You know what I mean? Right. So I'm glad that he kind of brought something different to it, and it's like, you know, obviously he's a mobster and he's a mob guy, but it wasn't just like, "Oh, look at me over here." You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't just like, here's a bad New Jersey accent. So I dug his portrayal a lot.
Yeah, I did too. It was different, but it felt fitting at the same time. Like, it felt within his range. Like, and I don't want to say like that's settling. Like, oh, well, you know, I'm totally fine with that. Like I felt like he played Falcone the way that John Turturro was meant to play Falcone.
Yeah. I like that he brought kind of like a quiet violence to the character.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Where it's just like, he's on the surface joking around, like the scene where they're going into the funeral, and Bruce is like storming up the stairs trying to see, because he thinks Selena is with them.
Yeah.
And he turns around, and the Penguin and a couple other guys are like goons or whatever, are like, "Hey, well, you know, what are you doing?" And he's just like, "Oh, easy, fellas, easy." And it's like the whole time it's just like one word from him and you're fucking a dead man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. And I really dug, again, the way he brought in kind of the manipulation, where he's like, just the way he's like very casually explaining, like, "Yeah, your father came to me and, you know, this and that." And he's like, "I'm sorry you had to hear it this way. It's been a long time coming." You know, that just real manipulative, like, you know, psychological, like, mind games. I thought was really cool.
Yeah, he did a really good job with that. Like, because, you know, he's not like this jacked dude that, like, you know, could beat this. Like, you know, Batman could obviously take this dude, but you know, so he's kind of like playing to his strengths, and he's just like what you said, like playing mind games with him, and he's like sounding like he can overpower him like mentally, but at the same time he's like, "I'm also your friend." Like, it feels very like backhanded, like where like you want to hate him, but at the same time like he's trying to be your friend. And it's like very like mentally like confusing, I guess. I don't know how to better explain that, but yeah, that's kind of how it felt to me. I was like, "Oh god, I want to fucking hate this guy," but like like it's not so cut and dry, black and white. So
yeah, I think my favorite actor or character or portrayal or what have you in the film is Colin Farrell as the Penguin.
Yeah.
I know that's Colin Farrell. I understand that. I accept that as a fact of reality, but it's like, it's not. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
And I know that, you know, he's under a lot of prosthetics and this and that, but like completely changed to a different person for me. And I thought that was because the Penguin's a character that doesn't really work in a real world kind of setting. Right.
Yeah. He's a very comic book kind of character.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that they kept him as true to the comic roots as they could have. Like, he's got the long nose like he does in the books, and like he's kind of got some facial deformities, but they didn't do it where he's got like some weird made up disease where his hands and feet are like fins, right? So like
Right.
they made it just realistic enough. And I like that, I was given, when I was talking about Turturro's performance, I was like, I'm glad he wasn't just doing like a bad New Jersey accent. And at the same time, like, that's what I found so endearing about this portrayal of, Cobblepot, is that like historically he's been sort of like a cast off of like posh society, or like got a British snobbery to him. And in this one, he's just like some scumbag from Gotham City, which I was like, that works. I thought it worked for this iteration. I really dug it as a departure. That was one of the departures they did that I really, really was on board with.
Yeah. I mean, especially with him being, connected to Falcone, it made sense for him to be, to have that mob kind of drawl to him instead of, the more traditional what we're familiar with in the comics.
Right.
So,
right.
But you're right. If I had a million guesses as to who played the Penguin, I don't know if I'd ever guess Colin.
Yeah, Colin Farrell would have been way down my list of guesses.
Yeah. I don't even know who I'd try and guess, but it would not be him. What'd you think of Jeffrey Wright as Gordon?
I think it was up and down. I think that overall, as far as his portrayal went overall, I think that he hit Gordon's motivations correctly.
Mm-hmm.
There were parts of his portrayal that I really liked. The scene where they're interrogating Batman. Well, or rather, he wakes up in the interrogation room, I should say. And he's trying to keep all the other cops away from him, and they're just like, "Oh, give me a few minutes." And he's like, "Look, hit me,"
Right.
And then he's being a smartass with him. And he's like, "You could have pulled your punch a little bit," and all that. Like, I really like that. There were a couple of times though where I was like, I don't know. I can't think of anything that stuck out to me specifically. I just remember sitting in the theater and thinking, like, it's like I'm watching somebody do. It's like it just seemed to me that there were a couple of times where I was like, it's very obvious I'm watching someone try to act like the character of Jim Gordon that I have in my head, which I liked him better than Gary Oldman.
Really?
Yeah, which is probably like blasphemous.
I don't think so. I mean, I think I like Gary Oldman the best out of all the Jim Gordons that I know, but
I just, the thing about that Gordon is like, with Oldman's performance is like, I just never, like, I was always like, oh, it's Gary Oldman, he's here now, you know what I mean? So I think that's probably more of a me problem than his portrayal of Jim Gordon problem.
Sure.
Whereas this one, I was just like I said, I accepted immediately. I was like, okay, this is the character of Jim Gordon, and I didn't have any issues. I know there was a big internet thing where they were like, Jim Gordon can't be black, and I was like, why not? Who gives a fuck? That's, you fucking
those people are some silly ass fuckers.
Yeah, there are real fucking things in the world to be worried about. That ain't one of them.
Yeah, like, I mean, you know how fucking serious this is? Not very serious.
Yeah. You're arguing about a movie anyway. Well, that's a whole other rabbit hole. It's a fucking stupid discussion we shouldn't even be getting into. But like, exactly. So it wasn't anything from that perspective. But like I said, I don't know. I think probably my issues, minor though they are, with his portrayal are more related to the script and those parts than to him specifically. Because like I said, there were a lot of parts where I was like nail on the head. I also like that he's not the commissioner yet.
I like that a lot too. Like, yeah, he was lower in the ranks. Like,
he's like a lieutenant, I think, at this point. Which
he's still got some pull. Like, obviously, like he's got some pull because he can, order all these beat cops to
some cachet.
To get the fuck out of the room for a couple minutes. But at the same time, you can tell like he's not head honcho like he is.
Yeah, and I think that's another that really plays into the point you made earlier, where it's like the movie doesn't spoon feed you everything. Like,
Right.
that's another thing where it's like, okay, you can tell by actions and dialogue that Gordon is somebody. Like, he's got
Right.
some cachet. He's clearly been a member of the GCPD for a while at this point, but he's not the commissioner yet. He's not the chief or anything. He's just like a lieutenant or a detective or what have you. But he's still well respected. So it's like, obviously he's had a career of some kind, of something to speak of to this point, but he's not quite the top dog yet. But it doesn't just like feed you that,
Right.
which I think is really cool.
Yeah. So we'll touch on Andy Serkis as Alfred real quick, and then we'll get to Paul Dano. I did like Andy Serkis um as Alfred, but I felt like we didn't get enough. Like we got just the tip of the iceberg, and maybe that's on purpose. But
Yeah.
I still felt like the payoff, like at the end when they were talking and they were holding hands when he was at his bedside, like that moment still felt very poignant. Despite like Alfred not being really a huge part of the movie. But yeah, that scene where he's like he's just speeding towards Wayne Manor. And I mean, little does he know that the bomb already went
It's
off.
already gone off. Yeah.
That moment I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah, I like this portrayal. Or I guess I like this iteration more. So I thought the portrayal was fine. Like, I didn't really have anything wrong with it. I just like the characterization of it, where it's like Alfred is more true to the comics than some of the other iterations I've seen, where it's like, because in the comics he's like a war hero and he did this and he did that, and Michael Caine's portrayal kind of brings up some of that from Nolan's trilogy, where he was like, oh, I was in like the Congo or Sierra Leone or something, where he's telling the story about the gems and things, and it gives you a little bit of that, but like, he's basically fucking Rambo, and so I kind of like that they did a little bit more of that in this one, where he's like doing the code breaking and helping out more with some of the things, whereas he's not just like the stand-in father figure for Batman or for Bruce Wayne, and this one, it's like, it's very clear that he's not.
Right.
He's sort of trying to be, but he understands that he's not, and Bruce is just not fucking having it, because he even says at one point, like, you're not my father.
Yeah.
So like I said, it was fine. I just like I like the characterization of it.
Yeah, for sure. No, I thought he did a pretty good job. I thought Michael Caine, he nailed the sass of Alfred, but
as only Michael Caine could.
Exactly. That sassy British man.
Yeah, I thought Michael Caine was too old.
Sure.
No, and like, look, no disrespect intended to Michael Caine, who I'm a huge fan of. I am a stan, as the children say, for Michael Caine. But in terms of like that world, it's like Batman's supposed to be like 30 something. Why is his butler like 94 years old?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think I don't know how old Andy Serkis is. I assume he's probably in his late 40s or early 50s.
Yeah, that's my guess. I'd say
maybe a little older than that, because he did a bunch of stuff for Lord of the Rings, and that's, oh my god, we're getting old. That was like 27 years ago. So maybe, but I can't imagine he's much older than his mid 50s. So I think that makes more sense, because if you look at the age that Batman is, I'm guessing he's supposed to be in this film based on some of the clues and some of the years that they mentioned. Like, that probably makes sense. He would probably be around Bruce Wayne's parents' age, maybe a little older.
Yeah, that was always my assumption for Alfred's age, was that he would be close to his parents' age, like Bruce Wayne or Thomas Wayne.
Thomas and Martha.
Yeah, his butler or their butler would be like their age. For I don't know, just for whatever reason, like mentally, like I with minimum effort, I just puzzle piece things together.
I mean, it just that makes sense though, give or take. I mean, even if you look at something like the animated series, where it's clear that like Alfred is older, he's still like, you would guess, probably around the age that Thomas and Martha would be had they lived, right? So it's not like, he's not like a grandfather. I mean, he's like he is like a grandfather, actually, I guess, but he's not like old enough to be Batman's grandfather.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right. Paul Dano as the Riddler. What'd we think? I thought he was kind of fucking scary.
Yeah, man, I gotta be honest with you. Like, I like Paul Dano as an actor. I like everything I've seen him in, and I think he's a very interesting actor in that he doesn't. I think he takes on a lot of different roles, and he
Mhm.
gives a much different performance than some of the things I've seen him in than you might expect. One of my all time favorite films is There Will Be Blood, and he's
Oh yeah.
amazing in that.
Hmm.
He was amazing in this for different reasons.
Yeah.
Um,
He did not play a preacher in this in this
well,
movie.
of sorts, but no.
Right. I mean, a preacher to some
Yeah,
like
not a god
QAnon
preacher
people.
anyway. Yeah, yeah. Well, put a pin in that. I got a lot of thoughts. Um, but yeah, I thought he was really scary. I thought that he really, really, really. I'm just going to say really and sound like a moron 400 times, but just the way he portrayed the character is like very clearly deranged
Hmm.
and trying to hold it together while being smart enough or intelligent enough to do that, set everything up and plan everything out. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I thought he was scary. That fucking costume choice was next level.
Dude,
Because
right?
the Riddler, like many comic book characters, is like gaudy and kind of dumb looking, right?
Yeah,
Like all the question marks and shit is kind of stupid.
yeah, it's yeah. I mean, it's very much meant for comic books.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Riddler. He's probably my favorite Batman villain.
Okay.
But it's just, it's it can be a goofy character, right? Like
Hmm.
any other comic book character. If you sit
Sure.
and think about it for more than 30 seconds, you're like, this is actually kind of fucking stupid,
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
I,
I thought that they adapted this
yeah,
for the screen and for this tone of a movie really well.
100% agreed. 100% agreed. Um, there were
Yeah.
parts of it that I thought were a little reductive. Like, it's like, okay, man, we get it. You watch Seven and then you backed it with Zodiac. It's like, okay, cool, you know. But I mean, if you're gonna ape, at least you're aping from good films, you
All
know.
right. Yeah. No, I mean, you mentioned the costume choice. Like, I thought that was great. I thought that combined with the sound design, like the isolation of the ripping of the duct tape,
Yeah,
like just thinking about it sends like chills down my spine. Like it
yeah.
was
The
so creepy.
the opening scene where the mayor is just walking and then you see the flash of light where his glasses light up. I was like, oh shit.
Oh, dude, like, yeah, like I audibly cast like, oh
Because
shit.
honestly, I had prepared myself. It's like I thought we were just getting kind of a voyeuristic look at, and honest to God, I was like, oh great, we're going to see Thomas and Martha Wayne fucking die for the 1000th time because
That's what
and
I
and
thought we were looking at.
and I think it kind of intentionally sets it up like that, and then
Hmm.
it turns out to be him like stalking the mayor to kill him. I was like, oh okay, that's cool actually, it
Yeah,
was a very like Hitchcock-esque sort of scene with the voyeurism like you would see in
right.
something like Psycho, the early minutes of Psycho, which I mean, obviously it's fucking Psycho rules, but I thought
Hmm.
it was great, and Dano really knocked it out of the park in my opinion. The one thing that I don't know worked for me completely, and I don't know that this is his fault, like the very end where he's in Arkham having the discussion with the Joker,
Hmm.
ostensibly,
Yeah,
I was like, okay, all right, it's a little much, I think, at this point, but up till then, and again, I think that might, there's a fair argument to be made that was more about the script choices at that time than the rest of the movie, or than the rest of than his portrayal. But overall, man, I thought he knocked it out of the fucking park.
yeah, yeah. Totally agree. Yeah, regarding that little thing at the end, I didn't mind it. I mean, I don't think I loved it, but um, it it was fine. I thought of what we saw of shit. What's his name that played the Joker? He's not even credited as the
Was it
Joker on
Barry? I don't know how
Barry.
to say his last name. Keegan.
Hold on, I actually yeah, Barry Kogan.
Kogan, maybe. Yeah.
Barry Kogan. We'll say that's it. Yeah, he's an interesting actor, and he has a
Hmm.
very interesting and distinctive face. I've really only seen him in a couple things. I know I saw he was in the Eternals, and he did a pretty good job in that. It's interesting that like all these actors are like are like crossing between Marvel and DC nowadays. Like,
well, I mean, 90% of the movies that come out are Marvel DC movies, so that's probably the only fucking paychecks they can get.
That's fair. But yeah, I thought it was fine. I thought it was kind of like sweet and endearing and in a messed up way that he kind of found like a friend IRL at the end.
I
like
think
all
maybe
his,
I'm just. Go ahead.
up until that point, like all of his like friends were basically just his digital followers.
Yeah.
That he probably never even met. So, now he's surrounded by people that are just as crazy or crazier than him.
Yeah, I think I'm just jokered out, man. I just got to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. So I mean, we'll talk about this here in a little bit, as far as what it's potentially setting up for in the future for the possible trilogy that I think we're supposed to get out of this.
Yeah, so that's what everybody's saying is this is supposed to be the first of a new trilogy, and they're apparently going all in on what people are calling the Battenverse.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's supposed to be 3 movies in this universe plus a couple of HBO Max shows.
Yeah, I heard about that. I think we're actually supposed to get an HBO Max spin-off before the next movie. I don't think it's supposed to come out until like 2024 or 2025.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Movie.
Yeah.
Which is, of course a bummer, but we wait like there was like 2 years in between getting the first teaser trailer for this movie and then the actual movie dropping.
Yeah. Part of that's because of COVID, of course, but
sure. Yeah.
It's still, I would rather they take their time and make a good film rather than trying to rush it out and just be like, hey, remember that movie you liked, The Batman? Here's the same movie, but with a different villain who has no motivations to speak of that we could think of.
Exactly. And they can still dunk on James Cameron because it'll be like 12 fucking years in between Avatar 1 and 2. So,
Avatar is such a strange case study because it's like it was like a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
Right? Like you don't get to make that kind of money without being a huge pop culture thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then like 2 years later everybody just agreed to forget about it. It's just weird.
Yeah, like the rose color glasses like dropped off. Or I guess the 3D glasses dropped off.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where like Cameron made the film at the right time in terms of like leveraging the technology that was available and then dumping it in IMAX 3D, and like everybody was like, you got to see it, it's an experience. And I'm sure it was. Like I didn't see it in theaters because I thought the movie looked fucking dumb. and then I'm sorry, James Cameron, I love you, man, I really do, but that movie was fucking stupid. And then I remember one of my my roommate, a friend of mine that I was living with at the time, was like, bro, we gotta watch it. And like he had a nice TV, we had a nice TV out in the living room, we watched it, and I was just like, why is this movie so fucking long? Why is it so bad? Like this. Anyway. One last thing about characters, and this is the one note that I told you I added. Gotham City.
Okay.
It's finally as fucking gross and disgusting as you're led to believe it is.
Dude, right?
Yeah. Like they really nailed. I loved that. It's very clearly like it's very clearly like there's part of it that's based on like Manhattan. There's part of it that looks like Pittsburgh. There's part of it that looks like Chicago. Like the elevated trains. And so like I'm glad that there's some things. I'm not sure where they filmed this, and a lot of the city I'm sure was probably computer generated, but there's things that you're like, oh, that's identifiable as like a real part of a city. But then there's the really truly like Gotham elements of it where it's like you see the part that is basically Times Square, but then there's all the old like Art Deco lighting that's like Gotham Theater and shit.
It's like Times Square, but they never cleaned it up after the 60s and 70s. Like porn still reigns supreme.
It's basically like they took the New York from Taxi Driver and were like, hey, it's 47 years into the future now. And like to me, that's always the part of like one of the glaring things about the Nolan trilogy is just like Gotham just looks like a regular fucking city. Like the first two were filmed in Chicago. It's very obviously Chicago. The last one was filmed in Pittsburgh. It's very obviously Pittsburgh. And like, I'm not knocking those cities. I've been to Chicago a few times. I enjoyed it. I've never been to Pittsburgh, but like, I don't have anything against the city itself or anything, you know, but it's like, okay, but it's not Gotham. Right. And then you, like me growing up watching like the animated series, which had a very stylized Art Deco kind of look to it.
Yeah.
And then playing the Arkham games, which has that same gritty, disgusting, like, why would anybody want to fucking live here? Like, Gotham is almost a character unto itself, right? So,
yeah,
the way it's described is just like, and in this film too, it's like super corrupt. You know, the mob controls everything. You know, you can't get out. People are just fucking trapped there. And then you see this Gotham, and there's very clearly like an inequality to the city where like Bruce Wayne literally lives in a tower, you know what I mean, and looks down on the city. And then there's the stuff where it's like, on the one hand, it's super futuristic and like LED boards, but there's still all the old school Art Deco fucking like hand bulb, like actual bulb lights and everything. And then you go and you see like the waterfront where the Penguins Club is, and it's just like, there's the overcity and then there's like the underbelly of it. And I was like, that is what Gotham always was to me from whatever, like reading the comics or watching the animated series or playing the games or anything. And even like Burton's Batman, I think, was a little too goth. Like, it put the goth in Gotham.
Right. But still,
like, it kind of got that like grittiness to it. And I think this one was a good marriage of, like I said, there's a few parts where I'm like, that looks a lot like downtown Chicago. And then like within 2 frames, it's just like disgusting again. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's Gotham, you know?
Yeah. Like my thought was like, it's raining the entire time. Like here's the situation. Forget the fact that all the police are corrupt and the police are controlled by the mob. They can never, fix and upgrade anything within Gotham because it will never stop fucking raining.
Yeah.
They can't get any construction done because
I was like, man, if
raining.
you put this movie up against Seven and The Crow as to what movie has the most rain, it might be a 3-way tie.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of rain.
Yeah.
But I mean, it did make things look really pretty. Like, this movie is fucking beautiful. Like, like I put it in my notes, like, you could take a still shot from any single frame of this movie and frame it and put it on a wall. Like, I just, that is hands down my favorite aspect of this movie is the cinematography. It blew me away at how pretty it was and how everything was framed and shot. It just, blew me away. And additionally to the tone and feel and look and everything, like, I absolutely adored the detective noir or neo noir style of the movie. We were kind of talking about how they leaned pretty heavily into the detective side of things and detective side of Batman, and is only fitting that it felt tonally like a noir as well. So
yeah, it definitely had a lot of noirish, neo-noirish tendencies. And I mean, your results may vary. I thought that was cool, like you said. It seemed like it came from a genuine place, if that makes sense, where it's like everybody talks about, I hate to do it, I haven't been on the podcast in so long, I don't want to shit on the MCU or the first one back, but I'm gonna do it.
No worries.
Where everybody talks about like Captain America, the Winter Soldier is like the best 70s crime thriller or political crime thriller since the 70s, and I'm just like, no, it's not even top 10, man. Like, sit down. And like, I'm not going to put this movie up against like, the Maltese Falcon or something. Is like, what is a better noir film? Or against Chinatown is like, what is a better neo-noir film? Because like, it loses in both instances, right? But it did seem like it came from a genuine place. Like I remember Matt Reeves saying in the early, like when he was still writing the film, after it had been announced and he had been attached to it, and he was talking about the script. He was like, I've been listening to a lot of the Taxi Driver soundtrack and trying to get that just gritty, noir, neo noir type thing too. Not the Taxi Drivers, particularly noirish or anything, but just that kind of feel to it.
Right.
And which I appreciated, being a fan of all those kind of movies. So I thought that was great. And like I said, I think they really, I think of all the Batman, live action Batman films, this is the one that really nailed a lot of the looks and feels of the character and his surroundings.
Yeah, for sure. No, I thought this, like the movie felt like it was ripped straight from the pages of a comic book.
It felt very pulpy, right?
Yeah.
Like very, very Pulp Fiction-y. And I don't mean that in the sense of like comparing it to the movie Pulp Fiction, but like
Right.
literally it felt like a very pulpy comic book type of, storyline and universe.
Yeah, my mind kept going to Sin City. Like the adaptation of that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously they're different movies, but Sin City also has a very similar feel to it. Everything is gross. It's always raining.
Yeah.
There's a lot of corruption, a lot of a mob involvement and whatnot. So there's a lot of similarities. So my mind was going to Sin City a lot.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah,
making similar comparisons.
I bet this movie would look fucking dope as shit in black and white.
You know what? It would be pretty cool if they pulled a George Miller for the
I was
Blu-ray
just thinking.
release.
I hope on the Blu-ray release they do that same kind of thing. I think the Logan Blu-ray did the same thing where
did they?
Where it had like the full color theatrical release, and then it had the Mad Max Fury Road was the black and chrome edition, if I recall correctly. And then I think Logan, when that released, had one called Logan Noir, which was again just the same film but in black and white. And not every movie needs to come out in a black and white version, but sure. I think this one would look fucking sick.
Yeah, it would.
Or in that Sin City kind of palette where it's like predominantly black and white, and then there's like stark flashes of color.
Right.
Yeah. That would be cool.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about the tech and the Batmobile. I guess there wasn't a huge showcase of Batman's tech in this movie, but I connected the dots with this after the fact. But his contact lens that let him like identify people, I was like, that is really cool. Why does that feel so familiar? And it felt familiar because I just read volume 1 of what is it called?
Court of Owls.
Yeah. And he has that same tech in there. And I don't think that was by accident because there's been a lot of buzz on the YouTube sphere and just online that's what this movie is setting up for in the future is the Court of Owls storyline.
I can see that. I thought we'll put a pin in that because I want to revisit it. But I kind of got the feeling as Riddler was blowing the walls up and the flooding was coming in, I got the vibe that they were going to try and go for something super big, like oh gosh, what's the storyline where, because they're saying it's under martial law, the storyline
Cataclysm.
Yeah. Something similar to that.
Yeah, my buddy Zack from the Don't Be Crazy podcast, we were talking about this earlier, and he was like, yeah, they also pulled inspiration from Cataclysm, and I was like, I feel like that name sounds familiar, and I think it was an iteration that you had mentioned previously, maybe on our Batman 50th episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyways, continue.
But getting back to the tech, I thought this walked a good line between showing that he being Batman like has the capacity for all this stuff. Like he has the supercomputer in the cave, and you know, the context and stuff, without going like super techie like the Nolan films did.
Sure.
I mean, there's an argument to be made, I'm sure, that these films also had a lot of super techie stuff. Like he's got the flight suit, for example, and everything. But at the same time, he's also like sort of retro or low tech, like the Batmobile, which might be my favorite live action iteration.
It's fucking dope as shit.
Yeah,
American Muscle.
Yeah, God gave me 8 cylinders, and I'm going to use every one of them.
Exactly, dude. Yeah, when he lights up that dark ass alleyway,
and there's just fire coming out of everything. I was like,
yes. Yeah, he scares the shit out of he literally scares the piss out of everyone. They all get in their cars and drive away.
He just shows up. He's like, "That's my Dodge."
Yeah, he's like, "I got Vin Diesel in the passenger seat, motherfucker."
Yeah, I really, really dug the Batmobile. I dug that it was like kind of believable, right? Like, you know, again, kind of believable. And I've made this point before, and I wish I could remember who I'm stealing this from. I'm pretty sure it's from an old Wizard magazine, but like, there's a difference between believable and realistic. A believable Batman story is he has a muscle car with a jet engine. A realistic Batman story is he's fighting crime on a rooftop and falls 30 stories to his death in the rain. Like, you know,
for sure.
But I really dug that, like, the technology seemed believable, right?
Yeah.
Like that was the big thing about, especially Nolan. And I don't want to shit on the Nolan trilogy, because I really enjoy those movies for what they are and everything. And I think Nolan's a very good director. But like, they got a little too science fiction in places. I think like the big thing that everybody talks about is at the end of The Dark Knight, with all the echolocation stuff. Oh yeah. And like I'm not going to say that's terrible, but at the same time, it's like, all right, let's reel it in, Chris. Let's reel it in. You know. Yeah. And I think this one did a better job of walking a fine line between things that are like obviously high tech or super high tech, but also kind of believable as things that are real. You know.
Yeah, like he has he pulled that thing in his bat suit, and it turned his suit into a squirrel suit, so he could rappel off of the building. And he actually, like, you could see the look on his face, like he was like, shit, I just realized that I've never done this before. And then he like hits the bridge and like actually falls like to the ground.
Yeah, I looked at my partner as we were watching that. I was like, that's a couple of broken ribs. He's having a bad night, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, he had a couple bad nights during this movie.
Yeah, he's gonna have some bruises at the very least.
Yeah, just a couple. Let's see. So we kind of talked about Paul Dano like as the Riddler. Wanted to talk about just like the Riddler in general, like his motivation, like his backstory, and just like the events that he puts in place during the film. And I guess I just wanted to hear your take on it, because like, you know, we talked a little bit about this when we first started talking about the Riddler, how they took some liberties and kind of adapted the Riddler, like especially when it came to his costume, like for current times, you know, because having, you know, a cane and a top hat would just be kind of fucking silly.
Yeah. But they changed his name from Edward Nigma to Edward Nashton, which I think is Edward Nigma. Enigma is a name that really only works in comics.
Sure.
You know,
yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
I like that change as well. I think that, excuse me. I mean, I liked the changes they made to his motivations, so to speak. Like it would have been very easy for them to have saved the Riddler for like the second movie and been like, oh, Batman's a known quantity at this point. You've got the first film, and you know, some of the Riddler's kind of historic motivations have been like to prove that he's the smartest man. He's smarter than the great detective Batman and this and that. And I think they kind of left that open, because there's the discussion at the end where he's like, you didn't figure it out. and the wheels kind of start turning. So I think they left it open as that could be some later character motivation for the Riddler. But as far as his motivation for this film specifically, and wanting to thinking that he's waging this holy war, more or less, trying to bring all the corruption to light and be a force of good in a way for Gotham. Like, I thought that was cool. I thought that was an interesting take on it.
Yeah, for sure. I really liked the information dump that he did like intentionally for Bruce when I can't remember exactly what happened. Like he opened up a file on his computer and all of a sudden like or maybe he was watching something like one of his videos and I had my own like like Leonardo DiCaprio moment, like the meme from Once Upon a
From Once
Time in
Upon a Time, where he's
Hollywood.
like,
Yeah, where it had "hush" in big black letters,
Yeah.
like written across a newspaper or whatever. I was like, oh, I get that reference. I
Yeah.
get that reference. I've read like 3 Batman comic books, and that was one of them. It did feel like they kind of pulled a little bit from the Hush storyline, but yeah, for the most part, like I really I dug his motivation and the like. It didn't feel schlocky. It didn't feel forceful.
Right.
It made sense. I know some people are going to have issues with the whole like he's basically a stand-in for Q right now. But I think that's just like art imitating life imitating art, or what have you.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of makes sense to kind of translate it that way for today's times, to put it in a way that makes sense for contemporary reasons and something that translates well on screen. It's just my opinion, but
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of come from or get where you're coming from with that and understand what you're saying. I thought that whole storyline at the end where they're like he's got 500 followers, mostly fringe people, that could have just been a throwaway line. You know what I mean? And then where he's like sending it out, and you realize that he's setting up like a domestic terrorist attack, and I was just kind of like,
that
okay,
yeah. We haven't touched too much on like issues that we had with the movie, or at least I haven't really elaborated on any issues. That was probably one of the biggest ones.
yeah.
At the end, it felt a little too tacked on and unnecessary.
Yeah, unnecessary is exactly how I felt about it.
Yeah.
Look, like I'm not trying to be one of those people again, like one of these 2 online people that's like, actually, art isn't political. Like, shut the fuck up. Art is definitely political. It doesn't always have to be, right? Like, not everything
Right.
that's ever been created as art has been political, but like, art and politics have always been, they've always been intertwined, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not one of those fucking mouth breathers. But at the same time, I was just like, okay, if you're gonna do this, do it in a way that's not fucking ham-fisted. Where it's like you said, he's basically the stand-in for like Q or one of these super ultra pseudo right-wing groups or whatever. Like, I was just like, I mean, okay, like it could have been done a lot worse. I will give that, but at the same time, it's just like, I feel like the last basically half hour at least of this movie didn't need to exist.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you there.
I think they just try to do too much. Like, it's the first movie. Now, if it's the only movie you're going to do, fuck it, throw the kitchen sink in there.
Yeah.
But you're talking about this is like the first movie in a new trilogy. It's like, man, you've already shown basically the worst case scenario ever. What are you going to do next? Like, you know what I mean? Like, where do you go from here? What's your next? That was my big thing with the MCU is like, okay, so your first villain is Thanos. What the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, what do you do after that?
Yeah.
So I think I've kind of transitioned us into talking about the things about the film that we don't like that much, but I think that they just try to do too much, and therefore the movie is too long. Like, I remember looking, I was watching the movie and I felt like, all right, we're starting to get to the point where we wrap up, and I looked at I looked at my partner's watch, and there was still over a fucking hour left. I was like, "What else are they gonna do? Are the credits 35 minutes long?" I was just like, "I don't know how the fuck." And then there's just like it just kept going. And I don't want to say that I feel like the movie dragged out, because, like we said this at the beginning, like you feel like it's 3 hours long because it is, but it's not like the most unenjoyable 3 hours you'll ever have.
No,
like I have
not
sat
at
through
all.
movies that are shorter that felt longer, right?
Right.
So I don't necessarily think that, like, I think it moves along well, and it doesn't, I don't think it drags too much. There's a couple of parts where I'm like, that could have been a minute shorter or something, but I just feel like the last half hour or 45 minutes, basically everything from his capture to the end, I was like, this could have been a 15-minute sequence. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I just think they were just like, oh, there's the bombs. Oh, and now there's all these guys that somehow inexplicably got to the top of Madison Square Garden, or excuse me, Gotham Square Garden. You know, just like, for fuck's sake,
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you there. I felt like that part was a little unnecessary, but at the end of the day, it's fine. I didn't mind it.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't kill the movie for me, and I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I fucking hated it. It ruined everything. Like, I still really enjoyed the movie. I
Right.
still think that there were really cool parts within that last, half hour, 45 minutes, or what have you, where that was happening. Where I was like, this is very cool that this is happening, but at the same time, it's just like, didn't need to happen.
Yeah, and plus, it gave Catwoman some extra time to kick some ass.
That's true.
And come and save Bruce, or Batman, because that happens a lot in the comic books.
Yeah,
where
he was about to get got too.
Yeah, he was about to get shot right in the fucking face.
Yeah, it was about to end very badly for Mr.
Wayne. As far as I know, the cowl is not bulletproof. So
probably not from a double barrel shotgun. No.
Yeah, at point blank range. Yeah. Not so much. But just one more note on the Riddler and his motivation. Like I liked where they went with it, where he was an orphan of the Wayne Foundation, and and then that ended up going kaput. And he talks about being growing up with Bruce Wayne being the only orphan that anyone fucking cares about.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I feel like this is a storyline that we've heard a lot, in comic book movies and non-comic book movies, but it makes a lot of sense in this context.
Yeah, I feel like that was one of the instances where the movie got political, and it didn't feel forced.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like this seems like a very natural reaction to that circumstance.
Yeah.
And I think it was handled really well, or was written really well, I should say. I feel like it really worked in the universe that they've created for it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you got to imagine like growing up in an orphanage.
Not ideal.
Right. Not ideal to begin with,
Not
but
ideal.
the only orphan that anyone ever really cares about or talks about is one that will never have to worry about money a day in their life.
Yep.
So yeah, totally get it. We're closing in on the talking points that we have. Let's get into some predictions for what we might see going forward. You got any predictions? I haven't had a chance to watch a ton of like YouTube videos and read articles and whatnot. I've mostly just been bouncing things off of people who know more than I do, like you and my other friend Zack. And most of what I've read and heard, it all kind of points to the Court of Owls. And possibly getting some Joker thrown in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the film established that the Joker exists. Matt Reeves came out and was like, yes, that's the Joker. But he also was like, just because we did that, this isn't like an Easter egg that you'd see in like a Marvel movie where it's like, this is setting up for the next film. He's like, he exists, but that doesn't mean he's going to be the next villain, Court of Owls would be cool. That's something that hasn't been adapted in a
I
in a
would,
live action.
yeah, I would really like to see that because, like I said, I just read the first volume of the Court of Owls, and that shit is fucking terrifying. He
Yeah.
beats the ever living piss out of Batman. Like, have you ever read the Court of Owls? I think I asked
A
you.
long time ago, I think I read it once.
Yeah, they are scary, and
Yeah.
they're just like, oh, you killed that one. That's fine. We'll just make more.
Yeah. One thing I did see is that if you go to the website, the Easter egg website that everybody's talking about, though,
I haven't been there yet.
I think it's Rada El Alada or something.
Oh yeah, yeah,
It's from
that's
the
right.
film. It's basically the same website they go to in the film. Um, it pops up, and somebody on the internet who's more of a turbo nerd than I am was like looking at the different what are like fake ISP addresses on
Mhm.
there, and they broke it down, and they were like, these are day, month, year for comic books. And
Mm.
it was like famous issues in Batman's history, like first appearance of the Joker, first appearance of Jim Gordon, blah blah blah. And there were two left that hadn't been filled in any further. One of them was the film's release date, May 4th, 2022, and the other one I don't remember the day, but it was the first appearance of Two-Face.
Oh, okay.
Or I'm sorry, not the first appearance of Two-Face, but a Two-Face centric um, book. There was a big Two-Face storyline where he
I
breaks out of
gotcha.
Arkham. So that may be a direction that they go with it. Personally, I would like for this to be more like the Burton films where Harvey Dent is a character and doesn't just become Two-Face halfway through the film.
Hmm.
And like he kind of did in The Dark Knight. Again, not just on The Dark Knight because I love that
Yeah,
movie, but um,
just
you know,
something different.
I would just like it to be where like there's Harvey Dent, the DA for a little bit of time. I personally, and this is just me selfishly wanting this, I would very much like it if they did uh, the Long Halloween storyline.
Sure.
That way you get Dent as Dent for a while. I
Hmm.
mean, he does become Two-Face towards the end of that. If I recall correctly, it's been a while since I've read it, but you still get Dent for a while. Or even if they want to stretch that out as kind of like a backstory for two films,
Hmm.
that would be cool. Where it's not the main story for the first part of like the second movie in the trilogy, and then the third movie he's Two-Face, and he becomes Two-Face at the start of it, and they do that. That would be cool.
Yeah.
There's so many cool Batman villains,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's always just like I don't want to see Bane again. I mean, I
Hmm.
do. I'd like to see another iteration of Bane, but like not right now. I don't really want to see another Joker.
I feel like Matt Reeves respects Batman and the franchise
Right.
way too much to rehash something that we've all seen before. I feel like he's got too much up his sleeve
Mm-hmm.
to just kind of wipe off and polish what we already know.
Yeah.
Um,
So um, I would like to see some of the more,
Lesser known.
some of the lesser known villains or some of
Isn't
some.
there talk? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine.
Of what's Mr. Freeze?
Mr. Freeze would be cool. A realistic take on Mr. Freeze, I think, or at least a believable one, as in this universe, would be difficult. But I'd like to see him
Hmm.
try it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the Penguin's still around, and it kind of sets up that he's going to be taking over the mob stuff, and it even says at the end of it, like, there's going to be. I think Catwoman says it where she's like, "There's going to be a power grab," and then it kind of does a cut to him standing in front of the window looking over things,
Mm.
and so like I think he's going to be in it. Whether he's going to be the quote unquote big bad, I don't know. I think he's going to be a player though, so to
Yeah.
speak. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to see the same fight. Like Poison Ivy would be cool. Again, I think that would be a tough character to bring into a more believable sort of universe, but I think she would be a cool character to have.
Yeah, Poison Ivy is an amazing villain.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not just saying that because she is, attractive, but yeah, she's amazing, and plus she would bring some added representation to the mix because I believe she's at least bisexual. I don't know if
It depends on,
the origin.
like anything else, it depends on which iteration, because like I was explaining last night to my partner where it's like, it depends on which author you're reading. for some of this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
I did kind of read as in read into the film, not read anything, like literature or an interview or anything. I kind of read into the film that Catwoman, Selena Kyle in this was bisexual.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, that's another thing I feel like. I mean, we've already talked about how Matt Reeves has been one thing he did really well with this movie is like saying things without saying them, not beating you over the head with exposition and whatnot, and like just pointing like, oh, look what they did here. So I feel like he could bring some representation to the screen in a non-ham-fisted way. So yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those are kind of my thoughts on the film. I don't know if you have anything else you want to cover. Or
I mean, I feel like we could talk. We could easily made this a 3-hour podcast to match the 3-hour movie.
Nobody wants that. Least of all me.
Right. Precisely. We got shit to do. And winks to catch because we both work in the morning. So
it's true.
You want to sign off with our shit that doesn't suck and then sign off for real?
Yeah.
Shit that doesn't suck.
So I took my brother Ben to go see Studio 666, the Foo Fighters movie.
Oh, you say that's the Dave Grohl movie, right?
Yeah. It is fucking amazing. It makes no sense. Like it's basically like a horror comedy. But Dave Grohl, he gets possessed by the devil and then like kills his bandmates. It's wonderful and bloody and gory and amazing. And it's got a couple of small surprise cameos in there. That's it's nothing that's going to knock your socks off, but you'll be like, oh, hey, look at that. And then I recently watched the the Amazon original movie, I Want You Back, with has Charlie Day and oh man, I always forget her name. She played Mona Lisa Saperstein in Parks and Rec. Let's see. Jenny Slate. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jenny. I know you're listening to this podcast.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a rom-com and it's on Amazon Prime. I definitely recommend that. It's very, very funny. So yeah, that's what I got this week.
All right. Well, I will throw out two as well. The first one is a bit of a departure because it's shit that does suck. And that is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot. I fucking hated that movie, and I considered cutting you out of my life after you suggested it to me.
Hey, to be fair, you were gonna watch it anyways.
That's true. I was, because I hate myself.
We'll just chalk it up to the kills were great. The storyline was kind of trash.
Yeah. I think I texted you literally 5 minutes and 30 seconds into the movie. I remember this because I paused it and texted you this, that I hated it and I hated you.
And I texted back something to the effect of, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate not as much as I hate myself.
Yeah. Fair. Something out of left field, because I've been really busy. I haven't had a chance to watch as many movies as I would have normally liked. But I've been really into like alien themed death metal recently.
Alien themed death metal?
Yeah, it's one of those weird specific things that I just fixate on because I think I'm on the spectrum, and that's how it presents in me, where I just get hyper fixated on stupid shit that nobody else cares about.
All right.
But yeah, like alien I'm very into, like, I've always been a metalhead, right? You know that about me. I've always been into death metal. And then like another friend of mine, recommended this band, and I was like, this band fucking rules, and they're like alien themed, right? And I was like, that's cool, because most death metal bands are either like, we hate God, we love Satan, or we're gonna kill this woman in gruesome ways, and that's just kind of, you just accept these things as a fan of the genre.
Sure.
But then there's just like some dudes who are like, we're gonna do a bunch of acid and sing about fucking aliens, bro, and I'm just like, yes, that is awesome. And then apparently this is a whole like subgenre I didn't know existed, so I've been into this heavy for the last like 3 weeks.
So you're basically telling me it's like co-eating Cambria, but it doesn't suck? I'm just joking. Co-eating Cambria is a fine band. I'm just not.
It's just their fans that we hate. It's just.
Oh my god! It really is kind of one of those bands where like a lot
they're
of
very
the fans...
talented. It's like Tool, right? I can appreciate that
Yes.
everybody in Tool is very talented. There's never ever in the world been a Tool fan I didn't want to punch in the face.
Yeah, I mean, I have plenty of friends that are into Coheed, but I just...
It's not my ties and knots. I can respect that they're very talented guys, talented musicians, and I can't remember the like the front man's name, the lead singer's name.
Sanchez, something Sanchez.
Sure, I have no idea, but I know he like has
Claudio
also,
Sanchez.
I think Claudio's right, at least. I don't know. But anyway, I know he's written like comic books, and like all their songs and all their albums kind of tie together. He's got like a giant like overarching story, and that's cool. Like, hey man, that's dope. Your music just doesn't do it for me, man. And that's not, but anyway, Alien Tinted Death Metal. I don't know, that we got a weird there. But
that's my fault. I hijacked the conversation
when it starts at alien themed death metal. There's only one way that ends up.
Yeah, and surprisingly, we didn't find a way to bring up Tom DeLonge in the mix. So.
That's only because we got off on the Coheed tangent. You had given me another 30 seconds, we'd gotten there.
Right, exactly. All right, well, Ted, thank you so much for coming back on. It was good to have you on again, reminisce, and felt like old times. Felt like a worn in baseball glove. I'm sure there's a less gross metaphor to bring up there, but whatever.
It could have been worse. You could have said a well-worn condom. So
I could have, but you said that.
I purposely chose not to do that, Ted. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's cool. We can cut that out. I won't.
We're gonna leave it.
Yep, leave it because exactly. It adds. It's one of the 11 herbs and spices to the Geek Garage podcast.
That's what it gives it that tangy flavor we've all come to enjoy.
We, as in like the three of us.
Well, that was spermicide. But.
Anyways, listeners, if you held on this long, thank you so much, and I'm sorry, as usual.
So am I.
Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, leave us a rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Stitcher, I think. And be kind, stay geeky, and eat lots of cheesecake. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for coming, everybody. Have fun.
Bye, everybody.